I call to order the August meeting of the Open Source Voting System Technical Advisory Committee of the San Francisco Elections Commission. Today is Monday, August 27th, 2018, and the time is now 6:03 p.m. I'm the chair, Chris Jordanic. Secretary Chan, can you take the roll?
Chair Chris Jordanic.
Here.
Jordanic present. Member Carl Haig.
Here.
Haig present. Member Rowan Catal.
Here.
Catal present. Member Tony Wasserman.
Go, I'm here.
Wasserman present. All are present. You have one.
Yeah, and Member Bafundo, his holdover expired this month, so we have one vacancy. Okay, and we also have with us today Secretary Don Chan. Next item.
Item 2, general public comment. Public comment on any issue within the committee's general jurisdiction that is not covered by another item on this agenda.
Okay, seeing no members of the public, next item.
Number 3, election of vice chair. Discussion of possible action to elect a committee vice chair. The process will be as follows. The presiding chair will open nominations for the position. When there are no further nominations, the chair will close the nominations. Public comment will then take place. After discussion, there will be a roll call vote, during which time each committee member shall state the name of the nominee for whom he or she wishes to vote. Any nominee receiving 3 votes shall be elected vice chair. Term of the office will begin immediately at the conclusion of the meeting.
Okay, so I think that description covers it pretty well. And we're having this because Member Bafundo was our vice chair before. So who would like to, I'm going to open the nominations for the vice chair.
Can we review what the responsibilities of the vice chair are?
Yes, there's only one, and that is to chair a meeting if I'm not present.
So do what you were doing right now when you were not here.
Yes. And ironically, I think the one time where we had to exercise that responsibility,
The
neither
vice chair
me
also
nor...
doesn't- Yeah, exactly.
So I nominate Mr. Wasserman because he proved how great a vice chairman he could be.
His prior experience.
Sure.
Okay.
You sound excited.
As long as that's the only thing that's required.
Okay, any other nominations?
I'm happy to take it too if somebody doesn't want it.
Okay. Are you nominating yourself or?
Sure.
Okay. So
Now we have to choose.
Well, Tony gets to choose.
okay, so then, all right, we have 2 nominations. Any further nominations? Okay, then let's take public comment on this item. Okay, seeing none, because there are no members of the public. All right, so let's have any, just have further discussion if there's any, and then we can take a vote.
Well, I think that Rowan stepped forward because he would like to have that role. And I'm perfectly willing to concede that to him.
Sure, whatever. You sounded so not enthusiastic. You don't have to do this if you don't want to.
I mean, I don't need it for my resume.
So are you endorsing, or how is this working?
No, that was a public comment.
Okay.
This
You
is
guys-
a discussion.
you
I
guys
think he
can
endorsed.
vote.
I think he endorsed Rowan.
Okay. Okay, so let's do the roll call vote, and the way this works is that you'll state the name of whom you're voting for, and then whoever gets 3 votes is elected. Okay, Secretary Chan.
Okay, so Chair Jordanic.
Member Katau.
Member Haig.
Member Catal.
Member Wasserman.
Member Catal.
Member Catal.
Myself?
Okay, it's unanimous. Member Catal has been voted.
Okay, great. Thank you, both of you, for volunteering. Congratulations, Rowan. Okay, so next item.
Number 4, approval of minutes.
Yeah,
previous
actually,
meeting.
we're going to skip this one.
Okay,
Sorry.
number 5, administration. Discussion and possible action regarding administrative issues, including but not limited to attendance at election commission meeting by committee members, the committee's website, and the committee's written reports to the commission.
Okay, so let's see, I'll report on a few things. I've been slow this summer to getting things updated on the website, so I've got some things to catch up on. Also, something I realized after the last meeting is that we had failed to kind of decide on if someone could draft a report, our next report to the commission, because that's due the first week of September, if I counted correctly. So we're gonna have to take care of that, I guess, at this item. And let's see. And then if unless other people want to say anything, we could decide on things like our next meeting and also who will be attending at the next commission meeting.
So do we know when the next commission meeting is? Because Secretary Chan said earlier that there was an issue with that.
Yeah, it's still an issue because the president hasn't responded to my text yet, so.
Well, in the absence of, I mean,
We can assume that it will be
Yeah,
what
let's-
is scheduled, and then,
let's just assume that it's what it normally is.
so normally it would be the 19th of September, is that right? Is that
Correct.
That's the date that is potentially a problem?
That's right.
Cool. I can do that.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait, sorry, 19th of September. No, I cannot do that.
September.
Yes, September. Nope, sorry, that is, I'm out of town, 19th of September.
Okay, and then just so people will remember, there was no commission meeting in August, but in July I was the person because we didn't have someone in July. So if Member Katau can't do it, either of you,
What day of the week is it?
it's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 19th, although it may be rescheduled.
I think I would say it's unlikely though, or reschedule. Can you do that, or Carl?
I can do it.
You guys are facing off. Okay, then,
As far as I know, I can do it.
because I know you've got a lot farther to travel. So,
Yeah, well, it's 4 hours of driving plus the meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually 3 hours of driving because usually back home is not too bad.
Okay, so Member Wasserman, you're willing to do that?
I'm
Okay,
up
thank you
for
very
it.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, and I can sign up in advance for October because I've been out of town every single time there's a commission meeting for the past 4 months or something. But I do usually try to attend them, and my October is completely clear.
Okay, so then, so you're saying tentatively you can?
Yeah, I should be able to, especially if it's when it's currently scheduled, like the third Wednesday or whatever it is, the normal timing, then I can do October. I'm not going to.
Okay.
I think there's a good chance I'll be out of the country the third week of October, so nothing definite yet. But
Okay. Okay, so the next thing we have to decide on when we're gonna have our next meeting. So remind me, what is the normal, or kind of regular schedule? It's
Our normal for September would be September the 13th, Thursday, second Thursday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, oh, Thursday?
Second Thursday is when we usually.
Right.
yeah,
He chose that to be right before the commission meeting.
Okay, does that still work for everybody?
yeah, the Tuesdays in the evening become bad after mid-October. So Thursday is good.
And I can't make it that Thursday, but I'm also busy almost all of September. Like, there's not.
Okay,
Don't even try.
okay, and then Carl, is that,
I think it should be okay.
okay, great.
So do we have enough for a quorum if there are just the three of us?
Yes, that is the quorum. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, okay, so the next thing we have to decide on how to handle is our next written report. And let me just double check when we submitted our last one.
It was prior to the whole slalom review.
Yeah. It was,
Okay, it was May 8th, so that's
Is that the one that I wrote? The one I
August.
read?
Yeah, it was the one that you did. So yeah, so this is, so basically we have to figure out a way to meet the deadline, which is the first week of September, without having a draft in front of us. And, one option would be to kind of, maybe brainstorm some key points, and then we could just delegate for someone to write that, unless anyone has another idea.
So if we identify the top 3 or 4 things that we've done since the last report, one of them is the demonstration software.
Mhm.
Another one is the tour of the Department of Elections to examine how things work now. A third was the statement to the Elections Commission about the Slalom report and our recommendation.
Mhm.
So that's 3 takeaways.
And then we also discussed the civil grand jury report. That's another one.
So grand jury report, that's right.
So there we go. That's the outline.
Okay.
And then we had an election.
Yeah. We
That's
lost a
right.
member as well.
That's right.
So did all that turn out like that? Did we, so we discussed this Salon report and we made a statement to the Elections Commission. I think we also discussed it in more detail and wrote some things, but I don't think we actually ended up like voting on language or anything like that, right? We didn't.
Well,
We ended, that was that really long meeting, we went to like 10:30.
Yeah, but then we had there were like documents there that had been written by people that like picked apart the Salon report in more detail.
so are you saying after we did the statement or before?
So after we did either after or concurrently with the statement, there were also some documents floating around that various people had written. I mean, I had written some prose about one part of the report, and then others had written other things.
Right, we had an external
that too.
submission.
But I don't think those things ended up turning into like part of the recommendation document or anything like that, right? They didn't turn into like official committee documents.
That's correct, and I think if I remember correctly, that we discussed those documents were before us the same evening that we
Right.
put the language together.
I'm just trying to remember what we decided to do with those documents. I mean,
Oh.
we read them and we talked about them, but I don't.
Yeah, we didn't decide to do anything with them.
Okay.
I think we might have pulled some language for our brief statement.
So
And-
I thought if I remember right, we made, some comments to the election commission and was we're gonna see what was reported there. Do you recall that?
We used them as input to the statement that we sent to the Elections Commission.
Yeah.
You're saying that we were gonna see what the commission did with it, or?
Well,
Yeah, I think you're right. The commission statement that we made to the commission was in no small part based on those things.
Yeah, but I don't know, are you saying, did we make a commitment to do further analysis, or I don't think we did, okay. I know the other thing too is, the discussion we did of the civil grand jury report was also like a long discussion too.
Mhm.
But for that one, we didn't prepare any
We
specific written.
Well, we did end up going through every item, right?
Yeah.
We did say things about every item.
well,
That if we so desired, we could turn into.
and also I thought there was like some responses requested, and so we made some commentary on the
Yeah.
responses.
I think for the purposes of our quarterly or
Mhm.
tri-annual report, I guess you call it, we could just say we discussed it
Yeah.
in detail, each recommendation and finding.
No, I just wanted to make sure that those loose ends so that we don't forget about it.
So I guess that will be in the minutes, like
There will be stuff in the minutes, yeah, I'm just wondering about, like, do we want to write anything up about, like, the responses that are requested from the Elections Commission and what we think about those various points?
Oh,
Because
Well-
I guess it's sort of in the minutes.
I mean, sorry guys, I picked up something in some other part of the world or on some airplane. The grand jury report, I think, is going to drive our discussion this evening about how we respond and what we recommend to the Elections Commission about the suggestions that were made in the grand jury report, right? I mean,
Well-
I'm kind of previewing what we may do.
well, I mean, so,
But it could end up in a report that gets submitted next week.
well, the problem is that the commission already had to respond to the civil grand jury report, so I think
Oh, the timeline was that short?
it was only 2 months, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay,
well, here's,
okay.
well, my feeling is that because this is text that we're not gonna be able to review as a group,
Yeah.
I think I would rather us not try to characterize, our conclusions, just because.
Yeah, no, sorry, I wasn't, I should have made clear that was a sidetrack, that was not me trying to argue that this should go into the
Okay.
training report, but saying like, now that we're on this topic, let's not freak out that we have this half-finished thing, and decide
Yeah.
whether we wanna finish it or not.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, agreed, for the report, we should just say we discussed the supervisory report.
okay, so how do people wanna handle this? Like, one option would be for someone to volunteer to draft the report, and then maybe, I could just, like, I could offer to, if someone else is gonna draft it, I could offer to, like, proofread it and then just send it. So that way we have 2 sets of eyeballs. But,
I have to decline. I'm teaching 3 classes and it starts tomorrow.
okay,
I would be happy to do it, given that I haven't been able to do my part in attending commission meetings the last 4 months or something, so I'd be happy to do it for you.
oh, great, great. I would be happy with you.
Sure,
drafting
yeah,
it.
I did it, I know I did it last time, but I also don't think I've been to a single commission meeting since I last drafted the report, which is,
Okay, excellent. So then, and then Carl, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So will you be able to send it to us after it's submitted?
Yeah, I'll send it when I submit it to the commission, and that way it's a public document. And then it'll be on our website with the others too. So, yeah, thank you, Ron. So let's take public comment on this item. Now that we have a member of the public, any comments?
No, if you happen to get into the grand jury report, then I would make comment, but other than that, I have no comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see.
1 second, Chris, when is the report due? First week of September, you said,
I
right?
think the sort of this, the signpost is the 5th.
Okay,
So September 5th would be,
and then before that, of course, I have to get it to you.
yeah. And then you already have the template too.
I already, yeah, I did it before, so.
Okay, so anything else? So remember, for the next item, we'll be able to discuss like the substantive topical things. So this is just administrative. Is there anything else on number 5? Okay, seeing no other comments. Next.
Item
Oh, wait,
6.
actually, sorry, I did remember something. So let's, Secretary Chan, can you give an update on the video? Like, were you able to?
They were not able to
Okay.
find the cord that would plug into the recorder, the video cam, and plug into the computer where I could download it from their internal memory. But they've adjusted the setting on the camera so that now that it's supposed to record onto the SD card, and I'll be able to read that and put it into the computer.
Okay, so then this, so this meeting will probably be the first meeting we have a video for. Okay.
Yeah, there's no glitches when the transferring.
Okay. Yeah, and then the other administrative thing is I've been lax in getting the application period open for our vacancy, so I'm planning on seeing if I can try to do that. So we'll have someone selected by the next commission meeting. Okay, so next item.
And you will notify us when it opens, right?
Yes,
'Cause
yes.
We can try to find it.
Yes. The criteria for such people and whether,
Yes. Okay.
Item
next
6, member reports. Member reports on committee-related activities not covered by another item on this agenda, including but not limited to the last Elections Commission meeting, Department of Elections progress, research findings, conferences, news reports.
Okay, who would
so
like to start?
I think I'm on the hook to give a talk to some group in Santa Clara that's interested in all of this, and that's scheduled for September 4th, next Tuesday. And Chris was going to send me the set of slides that he has used most recently, but I may or may not use them because they have some weird rule about using their machine.
So which group is that?
What is it called? Santa Clara.
I think it's, let me check here.
I can send you my slide deck too if you like, but
Sure.
that's
It's
like,
the Santa Clara County Citizens Advisory Commission on Elections.
okay, then you want Chris's, not mine. Mine is like elections for computer people, and Chris's is like open source stuff for elections.
So Tony, does that, would a way around that be?
I'm sorry to interrupt. How do I get out of here?
Down there to the left, and you'll see elevators.
Yeah.
That's all.
And stairs.
Or the stairs, keep going to the elevators.
You were saying,
Yeah, I forgot what it was.
Santa Clara County Citizens
Citizen
Advisory
Advisory
Committee
Committee on
for
Elections.
Yeah.
Is what Tony's
Oh,
gonna speak to.
oh, I was gonna say, can you get around the computer issue by just emailing them your slides and they could put it on there for you?
yeah, but you know, I'm a Linux guy.
Oh, well, email works cross-platform.
Use PDF.
You can export to PDF,
I know.
or you can export to PowerPoint from.
I know how to do this.
Okay. Well,
But,
well,
but I might want to make a point about open source.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. You're not allowed to use their closed source computer. Is that part of
Right.
it? Okay.
Or use closed source,
I
you
see.
know, PowerPoint.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I see. Okay.
Speaking of conferences, I am also on, one of the reasons I'm away for so much in September is because I'm presenting about a SET conference at the end of September, out in St. Louis.
Mhm.
And that, I have yet to update my slide deck for that, but it's, I will have to change it because last time I spoke about it was in March and things have happened since then.
So if you would like to share that after you've updated it, I'd be
Sure, yeah.
pleased to see
Although, as
it
I
and
said, the
review it.
focus is a little bit more on, I mean, you know, feel free to adapt or whatever. The focus is a little bit more on like people who understand software but not elections.
So I'm going tomorrow to the Open Source Summit in Vancouver,
Ah,
which is a Linux Foundation event. So that's where the computer people are.
yes.
So Carl, do you live in Santa Clara?
Sunnyvale.
Oh, s-
Yeah.
Do you
I
know
live in
about
Santa
this?
Clara County. No, I don't know about it.
Why don't you come along?
When is it?
Well, on the 4th. And
September
I can
4th?
send- Yeah, it's in the, I have it on my mobile, I think. Calendar.
It's at the county building.
It's on Gish Road.
No,
Is
it's
it
on
where the
West-
elections
it's on
office
West-
is?
It's on West Heading.
Oh, it's on the heading. Oh, okay.
80 West End.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
And then, Chris, do you want to talk about what's happened at the commission meetings and also like with, you know, budget stuff over the summer?
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to see if I can remember everything. Okay, so in terms of the budget, the mayor, you know, I don't know what the proper word is, approved or announced the budget on August, or signed the budget on August 1st. And the budget amounts are basically, there was no change to when the supervisors had agreed to putting more money in. So I think the total amount of money that's currently allocated towards open source voting in the city's budget is a little bit less than $1.7 million. So that is, there was 1.255 million extra that was allocated by the Board of Supervisors. That's split into, you know, around 600,000 for the first year and 600,000 for the second year, plus the $300,000 that Kuwait had allocated for the first year, plus 125,000 that was left over out of the 300,000, you know, from a couple years ago, that, you know, minus the money that was spent on the slalom report. So, so then that was approved, and then what happened after that is the director told the commission that he has been working with the director of the Department of Technology to hire a project manager. And this is a person, I may have said this before, but this is
I
a person.
think you mentioned that last time.
Yeah, so this is someone who would be one of the higher level management salaries. And that position, to my knowledge, hasn't been posted publicly, but that will be posted. I guess the Department of Technology is the one that's putting that job description together. And then after that point, I think they would look into how to actually start development. So the last commission meeting was a really how do I describe it? A little bit contentious. So I had brought forward with another commissioner or two, I can't remember, an amendment to the resolution that the commission passed in the previous month. I think that was June. And we had, the original resolution that the commission passed stated that the commission shall ask the mayor and board to name the department as the project owner. And then between the June and July meetings, after discussing with some people, it seemed to me that there's no reason that the department couldn't just state that they're the owner, because no one's really taking leadership within the city. So that we proposed an amendment for the commission to name the department as the owner of the project. And then there was a long discussion during the commission meeting where the director voiced a lot of concern, saying that he did not have the expertise, or he didn't have the ability to manage the project, and then ultimately that amendment didn't pass. So, and that's one of the reasons why I have this next agenda item number 8 on here. It's just so we could kind of flesh out a little bit of what project ownership means, because I think part of it was that people weren't clear on what that term meant. So so that's, and that was of course during the meeting where we discussed how to respond to the civil grand jury report. And I think the commission voted on I drafted on text for how to respond to the different findings and recommendations to the civil grand jury report using the discussion that we had. And then the commission approved almost all of those things with the exception of a few of the responses because of this project ownership issue. So does that clarify for people where things are right now?
Yeah, I have completely, during my travels, I completely forgot about the July commission meeting, so I haven't listened to the recording or read the minutes or anything.
Yeah, and
Catch up on that, but thanks for providing a summary there.
Sure. So it's still a little bit up in the air about who's formally owning the project, and we'll get a chance to talk about that during number 8. And then another piece of news is that last week there was an article in the Los Angeles Times, and because the Los Angeles County registrar issued a press release announcing that their tally system had gotten certified by the Secretary of State, and which is great. Although the thing that was a little bit disappointing to me is that the press release was announcing that the county had gotten their open source voting system certified by the Secretary of State, but there was no evidence that any of this code was actually available to the public. And then I informally asked the registrar if on social media, like if there's a link to the code, and I think a couple other people did, and there was no real reply to those questions. So
And to clarify, so the code has not been made available, but also you said you went from tally system to voting system. So what LA County submitted, is that something you would call a full voting system?
Let's see. I could read their first sentence.
This is the article. This is a news article written by a reporter.
Well, there was a press release followed by a news article.
Okay, so the press release is from
Do you
LA.
know the date of the news article? Because I get an electronic version of the
Yeah.
Times every day.
So this was August 22nd, and it said, the headline is, LA County gets state approval of new vote counting system using open source software.
Okay.
And then the press release starts with the sentence, Okay, well, the headline of the press release is Secretary of State Alex Padilla certifies Los Angeles County's new vote tally system, making it California's first certified open source election technology. And so there's no there's no.
We should ask Alice Padilla if it's open source.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, it seems like if you're gonna make it open source, then the Secretary of State should publish, when they collect the material that's required to be collected, and it's not proprietary, it seems like they should post it, so that we know so the public has a right to know what software has been certified.
Yeah.
Well, that's another way to go at it.
Right. So this is kind of like the first open source software that's not actually available. Yeah.
Well, we read the contract that the county has with their vendor from the previous committee meeting, I think, or the one before that. And I think I pointed out, it sort of gives them legal room to either release it as open source or keep it to themselves. The county definitely owns it, so publicly owned is a correct description in my understanding.
Right. And then I think there's maybe language saying it uses open source software, which is kind of
Okay, so it uses GNU-C or Java, open
Yeah.
JDK.
right. So yeah, we don't really know what they mean by saying open source. Okay.
The developers used Eclipse.
Oh, and then also something else that I wanted to mention is that the director, he did send me the PDFs that we requested of the scanned ballot images, the scanned ballots.
Oh,
Are those like blank ones or filled out ones? Or
They're filled out
sample?
ones. They're real.
Oh, how many? Do you know?
I think he sent them to me over email, so there's like 6 different emails, and I think it's like 60 or 100 PDFs, and I think they're all vote by mail.
there are how many PDFs? Oh,
Like-
individual PDFs or individual pages.
Yeah, is this something we could post on our TAC website?
Yes, so this is what I wanted to talk to you about. So I guess actually, I mean, maybe we should probably vote on this as part of number 7 because it's kind of related to developing scanning software. But why don't during number 7 we'll discuss what we should do with it. But I'll just report to you that I got confirmation from the city attorney's office that we can post them publicly, but we just need to make sure that there's no personally identifying information on the ballots.
So we need to vet them and then publish them.
Yeah. And of course, there shouldn't really be any identifiable info to begin with. But
I
we
mean,
should just
if
check.
there was, then they screwed up, right? Because they should have counted the vote.
I think so. Yeah, and then, okay, so is there any, I think that's all I wanted to report on. And then does anyone have anything else?
I have a question. Was anyone able to go see the demo of the new equipment?
Yeah,
I was not able to
I went.
get out.
Oh, how was it?
yeah, that's all right. I mean, bunch of boxes and user interface I thought was a little bit cleaner than what I've seen in my own precinct.
So what did you see demonstrated?
Casting a ballot and getting the results.
Well, you used a
It's a,
ballot marking device?
yeah, it was a screen, it was online. It was not, it was a graphical display.
Oh, so it's the accessible touchscreen
Yeah.
device that you use on the street.
Yeah.
And then
It prints.
it prints a ballot?
Yeah.
Is it a ballot or is it a paper cast vote record? Do you know the difference?
No.
There's a legal definition.
All right.
So the ballot has, all the contests and candidates with marks next to the candidate that's selected.
Yeah,
A paper cast vote record lists the contest and the choice that you made.
this is the first.
So it's the
About-
same picture as
Yeah.
like a hand-marked ballot.
I did this very quickly on the last morning that it was available, so it was like the 31st, it's like the last day, and until noon, and I got there at about 11.
Mhm.
So it was real quick.
And
Just to
then
get a flavor
they
of
show
it.
you feeding it into a scanner.
So, you know, it looked kosher. I mean, who knows what's going on inside the box, right? But it looks cleaner than some other things I've seen.
Sounds like that's an improvement over the current mixable technology that we have here as well.
Yeah.
So does the current one produce that little
The current
toilet
one
paper
produces-
roll?
Yeah, it produces a toilet paper roll, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, is then transcribed onto ballots at Pier 48, which are then fed through scanner.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I also attended that session. Thanks for bringing that up. A couple things I wanted to say about it. So that I learned that all of their machines run Windows, except the precinct scanner is running Linux, and it's an off-the-shelf scanner. And then I asked why it was using Linux and not the others, and I think he just said something like, well, it's a separate component, so they, for whatever reason, maybe they were able to, or it just worked out. And then I don't know if
what
this,
other equipment is there? Just the ballot marking device?
there's the touch screen, there's also the central scanner for vote by mail.
And that runs on Windows?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess maybe the drivers are more exotic for high volume scanning.
Well, the rep didn't mention that one, but I'm just assuming he said the precinct scanner was the only one that was running Linux, so maybe it's possible. But is this what you remember for the touch screen? What happened if you use the touch screen? It prints out a piece of paper with a QR code, and then the choices that you selected.
That's a paper cast vote record.
Yeah, but not the choices you didn't select.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what your understanding was based on what you said?
Well, a paper cast vote record shows the contests and the choices that you made, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some codes or whatever, but it kind of similar to what's on the tape, that the old machines
Yeah.
had. So that's different than it's not a ballot because it doesn't show all the candidates with next to what's marked.
And then you walk over and you feed that into the
So
separate.
the scanner can take a paper cast vote record?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it has a QR code on there.
Yeah. Oh, does it use the QR code?
I think so.
And that's it?
I'm guessing. I mean, that's an internal.
Well,
I'm not able to look
that
at
was
the
one of the
code,
big
so-
discussions on the
Yeah.
NIST
Yeah.
forum, arguing whether they should allow
Right.
But,
barcodes, and they're saying, well, it's bad to rely on them.
But I mean, I guess you are going to, if you hit that precinct and you were % audit, you are going to look at those slips and count them, right?
Depending on what the law is to do the audit.
Yes, but, yeah.
But we don't
In San
know.
Francisco, we would do that, right? We are.
Hopefully, yeah.
But actually, we don't really know what the precinct scanner does, whether it actually does an optical scan
Well,
of
that's
the
proprietary
English,
information.
or it only uses the
It's
QR.
proprietary information, trade secret.
Yeah.
Okay. But so this has the prop N problem. Is that what you?
The
termed
what
it?
problem?
The prop N, or it's the problem where you have to remember what the letters. Of
Oh, yeah. So that's, yes, actually, that is not great. Now that you mention it, in Prop N is actually a prop that I liked that passed in 2016 because it lets the theoretical me that has children vote. But yeah, no, exactly. When there's so many letters, when it's A through X.
Well, we had worked out some language for our recommendations
Yeah.
a couple meetings ago.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's not
What-
not something I personally like. Because so what you didn't in the demo, what you saw is I don't know how many contests they had in your simulated thing, but there probably weren't a terrible lot. So one of the problems there is that if you have a lot of propositions in the ballot, in 2016 we had A through X for local propositions, and then like 51 through 67 for state propositions. So the total number of contests in the ballot was 52, I think, depending on your precinct. So, I mean, that's a lot to verify. Like when the slip comes out, you're supposed to verify that what the slip says is correct before you put it in the scanner, right? But it's a lot to.
Because you might not know like S. It's
Yeah,
just like
which
yes,
one is
yes,
S, which one was
T,
T,
no,
which one was U, which one was V? If you have a real ballot, then, so even if this was a ballot marking device, the same thing would happen. If you had a real ballot, you would at least have the ballot measure description printed there. But also generally, like, if you mark, you have to do all the cognitive effort for every measure twice. Right? You have to mark it on the screen, and then when it comes out, you have to go back and
So some
verify those choices,
some
right.
counties, and I'm not sure about the state, they have an official title that's assigned to each
Yeah.
measure.
We do too.
You know, other counties, they only have the question text. There's no official titles. But if there is an official title, then you could print the, one-line title along with the measure letter. And then it wouldn't take up too much space.
Right. By the
Yeah.
question, you mean the things like shall the city,
Right,
raise
yeah, well,
the
there's
tax to
sometimes
blah,
a
blah,
paragraph of text,
Yeah.
sometimes even longer.
blah.
And
SF
for the
one,
state measures, there's an official, they don't have a question text,
Yeah.
but they have a summary paragraph, so it's
Right.
like a paragraph, but they also have,
That's
I believe,
Yeah.
for the, legislative analyst or something comes up with the
Yeah.
official title.
Yeah, I've seen those. In SF, they have questions that are relatively succinct. They're maybe like twice the length of a normal state measure title. And it's something like, shall the city levy such and such tax for this, that, and other purposes, question mark.
So usually internally they come up with something, but that's been a problem I've had with smart voters, getting like a title for the measure,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it doesn't exist, so what we end up doing is just inventing one, because you need it.
Yeah.
So on an unrelated topic, well, lightly related, my travels took me through Tallinn, Estonia, where all the voting is electronic. There is no paper. Everything is done electronically.
No verified ballots, no
Nothing.
paper.
And they're happy. 1.3 million of them. And, what's all this paper stuff was kind of the general response I got. So, end digression.
So I was in Germany during their election, and they use hand-marked paper ballots that are counted by hand.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, so I'm going to come back to the Dominion system, but on that topic, something else. I think you might have sent me an email.
The West Virginia?
Yes, it might be
Yes.
fun for us to talk about.
Yes, so West Virginia, if you, I don't know, they're gonna do electronic voting for, mostly for soldiers who are deployed in Afghanistan and places like that where,
Not just electronic, but
well, but, I mean, the expectation is that the Postal Service won't get the ballot from Kabul to Wheeling in time. So they've, I think they're trying it in 2 counties this year. in West
So
Virginia.
are they doing electronic with a paper
No.
record?
well, it's some kind of internet voting where I think you have to somehow like I think you take a video of yourself like saying something so they verify you. Maybe send them a picture of your driver's license or something like that to verify it's you. And they have some kind of a protocol, but the it's a way for overseas members of the military, I believe, to cast a vote using their phone.
Using their phone?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think the San Francisco, I believe they've implemented remote accessible vote by mail.
That's
And-
just to print out the ballot, though, and mark it. Not, you still have to send in a paper ballot, but this is.
I
So-
forgot all the rules, but you can like fax it or something like that.
Well, I think you were able to fax before, but the difference is that this is,
This is like email voting, basically,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was in the news a few weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
I thought people have been doing that before.
No, this is the first time.
First one. Everything else is done by fax.
Right. So something else I wanted to mention about the Dominion system when I went to watch, I asked them a little bit about the reporting, because this is something that we were working on for our component.
Precinct reporting?
No, for their results reporting.
Okay.
And I was especially interested to know if their ranked choice voting results were an improvement over what they're doing now. And unfortunately, it seems like their summary report where it lists all the contests, I think the RCV, they still only list the first choice totals. So I was kind of hoping that they would at least like say the winner too, but
Yeah.
so even though it's they can tally RCV just as frequently, they're still not displaying the totals. So then I asked him, the representative, is this something they can improve to the report? And he said, well, if they make an adjustment to the reports, they need to go back to the Secretary of State for approval. And then once...
Even for like a HTML summary, that
Yeah.
seems to be, I didn't know that was part of the,
Well, so...
well, I guess any change you make.
Well, so they were saying that they're what they're called custom reports, and once they get a custom report approved, they can just use it for anybody. And I looked in their UI, and they have about a dozen. What?
Oh, okay, I understand. So they get it approved once by the state, and they can use it in any county.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but SF though, in the past, of course, they're not even using. They're just using them the export, and then they're creating their
Yeah,
own.
I mean, in most counties, that's what they do.
Yeah. So, but it's kind of interesting to know because this is what kind of the first look at what their system does in a smaller level and how it can benefit from open source. So, okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. Anything else? Anything in the news you saw? Or-
Minor question about the new voting system, because I wasn't able to see it. How do the position scanners report errors compared to how they do presently?
Yeah, so I think, so this time it's, I think if there's an error on your ballot when you're putting it in, it shows up on the screen, so the voter can just look at it, you don't need the poll
Right.
worker to tell you.
Right, because right now it prints it onto a tape, which is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen.
The new one definitely shows you.
Right.
And then I think one of the things they tried was like deliberately made like 3 or 4 errors, because I was curious if it would show me all of them. I think it only shows you like the first 2.
Right.
So it's not, it'll just, and then you can decide to, return the ballot and remark it.
So it sucks it in almost all the way and then says, do you want it back? And then it unsucks it.
Yeah, well, that's what it does even in today's
Yeah,
system.
okay.
Well, today's today's system is a bit worse because it sucks it in and it spits it back out almost all the way.
Ugh.
And then you have to, if you want it to be accepted, you have to hold down the override key one, and then it will suck it back in.
Oh.
But it's really easy for it to get dislodged from that state where it can be sucked back in. So oftentimes you have to feed it in a second time, have it make the alarm sound a second time, and have it come out, and then be very careful to not touch it and hold the button until it's sucked back in. Because if the voter is standing close enough to the machine, the ballot card is like this long, right? If the voter is standing close enough to the machine, the ballot card will come out and will like bump against their leg or their, some part of their body. That's enough to get it to not be able to be sucked back in. So it's really touchy that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's actual suction though, it's more like,
Yeah,
Rollers.
there's
Figurative.
whatever it's called, it doesn't work well.
yeah.
And it's the same kind of
Feeding
thing
is-
as two-sided printing, isn't it? That it kind of throws the thing
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it's that kind of mechanism where it's like almost all the way out and then gets pulled back in.
Okay, so let's take public comment on this item. Any comments?
Yeah, the news is interesting, isn't it? You know, what I'm hearing from Tony and the rest about the old systems is, which we know they're horrible. We can't explain why they made them so poorly, but they did. So we got taken to the cleaners on that one financially as a county and as a state and as a country. And now the new ones sound like they're some version of the Decker design, again, which is what we recommend for the open source system. We're recommending tablets rather than some sort of Edsel type hardware, but just simple tablets and simple scanners. And so everything is ubiquitous and easily replaceable, obviously. I think all this is obvious stuff. I'm sorry to hear that their proprietary architecture and hardware is based on a proper concept of a perfectly printed ballot to eliminate voter intent issues, but again, I feel like unless we're moving toward simple tablets and scanners, we're lost down the bad road. To Tony's points, yeah, that West Virginia company is smartphone voting, so it's smartphone voting. As Alan Deckert, the same person that designed I think the state-of-the-art architecture for precinct setting, is now advocating for smartphone voting with the Election Transparency and Security Act of 2020, which calls for proprietary software to be illegal in the state of California for use in elections, and for the adjunct of a smartphone to be available. This will, I think, change a lot of the dynamics, and certainly if utilized nationally will eliminate a lot of the Jim Crow problem, which of course I think we're all looking for enfranchisement. To the point about Estonia, that's interesting and has a local tie-in. Verified Voting, one of the groups that comes and lobbies the Elections Commission from time to time, and is actually David Dill, the person responsible for the voter verified paper audit trail that you referenced. He's the one that botched that particular design. The design was initially the concept of Dr. Rebecca Mercury, but David Dill bastardized it before removing her from the working group Accurate, and they were known as Accurate at that time, and then morphed into Verified Voting. They've been over in Estonia diddling with their elections, and that's an interesting story because that very well may have opened the door to Putin, in some people's opinions, so that he would diddle with our elections, which Estonia is very interesting. It's always a hotbed for this conversation, and it ties right into verified voting and their push here locally, where they come in and have tendered opinions. Padilla, you mentioned, I'm just moving backward to Padilla now, and he is, problematic in his announcement that that's an open source system in Los Angeles, because apparently it is not. So I think it's incumbent upon this sophisticated group to have your opinion together in alignment with Open Source Initiative and California Association of Voting Officials, that there can be no open washing in this space. We cannot allow corporate interests to come in purporting to be open source and then make a mockery of the work that you're doing here, because if the lines are blurred, then you lose your standing.
Okay.
I don't think my time's over, only because the subject matter, I'm just hitting each point. But I'll conclude here very quickly. And then regarding John Arnst, you have to come to the conclusion, again, Alan Deckert did over a year ago, we have to terminate John Arnst. John Ernst has been speaking to elected officials and telling them he doesn't want state matching funds, and he doesn't want money coming in to our county for these purposes, and that's dereliction of duty, and that flies in the face of the Board of Supervisors and the mayor and everybody else, yourselves, that have been working on this. So you've got one guy now standing in the way of heightening the election system security for the United States, and I don't think we're going to, as San Franciscans, stand for one fellow that may have an agenda of his own blocking the direction of an entire county. So that is my comments at this time, and I thank you for allowing me extra time.
Thank you. Would you mind shutting the door just a little bit louder? Okay, are there any?
And by the way, I'm Brent Turner with California Association of Voting Officials. I didn't mention. Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments on this item before we move on to number 7?
Can you briefly speak to what happened to the state matching funds proposal? Because I lost track of that.
Oh, that, I think it was never heard by the committee, and I think it was, they were trying to get Assembly Member Ting to put it on the agenda because he was chairing that committee, and you weren't able to get him to do that.
Ting called Ernst, and Ernst said, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, so, okay, so anything else for number 6? Oh, also, there was something else in the news. This, the DEF CON event happened. I think it was about,
Late August,
yeah, a couple weeks ago. And there was also a lot in the news around that. And then I think ES&S issued a press release both before and after the event. And there was kind of,
So was there some voting related talks
Yeah.
at DEF CON?
There were various news articles about how various election technology had been compromised. Like they had voting machines that they brought out and like election websites that they worked on, and there was a set of election websites that they had like one of the children's activities was like compromises election website, or like this website that like hosted a voter roll or something like that. And so they had, I think it was the one news article that centered around like an 11-year-old that like compromised something within 30 minutes.
and then
Guess I'll
I
have
think
to look
the
that up.
company like issued a press release saying this is not the real world setup or something.
It bears pointing out that 11-year-olds would come to DEF CON and not necessarily representative of 11-year-olds, but it's it still makes for a nice headline there. So there were some headlines about election security around that conference.
Yeah, so, okay. All right, so let's move on to the next item.
Item 7, voting system component development. Discussion and possible action regarding OSVTAC developing and/or facilitating the development of one or more voting system components as proof of concept.
Okay, so for this item, we're going to discuss 2 things. First, we're going to get an update on the software we've been working on, and then we can talk about the those PDFs that we got. So, so Carl, since you've been doing
Yeah,
most work,
so I've been negligent. I was gone pretty much most of that last month, so I thought I would be able to do some work in my spare time while I was traveling, but it didn't work out. So I'm pretty much ready to get back into it now.
Okay.
So the next major step would be converting the electronic representation of the November results into the format that the results reporter reads. 2 parts. One, the election definition itself, and then the results tables. So the election definition, well, depends if I want to make it compatible with DFM or something else. My goal is to make it look closely exact to, so if the ballots are printed with a certain heading, then That's the heading that we have in our results reporter. So it may take a little tweaking because I might have to scan the PDFs in order to get the headings. But anyway, that's my goal. And then the other part was to do CSS work. And then I know, Rowan, you've been traveling a lot, so I didn't
Yeah.
bug you.
Okay, yeah, well, as I said, I'm also, I'm in town from now, I'm like in town the first week of September, but starting like September 10th until the 30th, I think, I will be in town for like 48 hours.
Okay. So, I may just do a little bit and then kind of postpone that. But the main thing we want to get is all the core detail and be able to start creating things. And then I think the next step would be, once we get all the data and we can produce reports, then the next step would be to clean it up and make it look nice.
Yeah, and then shortly after the last meeting, we now have 4 different repositories, which lets more of us collaborate without stepping on the sunshine.
And I also haven't moved anything into any of those other
And
repositories.
feel free to reach out to me when you're ready for me to style things. I just know that if it's September, I might not respond that quickly.
Okay, and I also have not had time to work more on ORR, but I would like to, if possible. So, and also, on this topic, so the normal deputy city attorney that the commission has returned last week. He was gone for 4 months, traveling in South America. And so the person I was talking to around the copyright licensing issues that we had questions about, I was talking to someone who was not normally our deputy city attorney, but when he got back from traveling last week, I met with him to kind of bring him up to speed. So he's going to look into, try to get a decision on that issue. And like if we need to get an ordinance passed or something. And then, so then the other question was around the PDFs of the ballots.
Right. Well, we got scanned ballots. There's also an issue of, are all the blank ballots now shredded, or are there any other ballots that we could get physical paper to do a high-res scan, or
Oh,
like, ones that are not filled out, so you can get a template of what the original was?
well, that's something I didn't look into, but didn't the online sample ballot have, you can plug in your precinct and then it'll give you a PDF that you can. Minus
Yeah, except
the
it's
watermark.
missing. Well, it's missing a few things, but maybe that doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, let me
It's-
know.
It's.
if
I
that's
mean,
something-
it's like this.
Yeah, is that good enough, or
Uh,
why don't you?
well, I don't know, because it has sample written over it, so the scanner can't use it as a template because it's altered.
Did you want to say something?
Well, a long time ago, I got a copy of mine, a blank copy of my ballot, unmarked, and I think I sent it to you. I don't know if it got lost in some email, but it was, it was a PDF of that.
Oh,
If that would be useful, I can send
You mean you scanned your blank ballot?
I messed up my ballot, so I went to another colleague in the office and asked her if she had a copy. They had blank ballots.
Yeah.
As a file, so she just gave me a PDF of it.
Oh,
It doesn't say sample, it's
So-
just a blank ballot.
so just to clarify,
Well,
Or
actually,
do
if
you-
we had
do you just
if we
need
have
the-
PDFs of the original ones that are not samples, that would be.
well, just clarify. Are you more interested in this just because of having the text, or are you trying to? Did you want to actually?
No, that would be to make a blank for a scanner to match against. If you have an OCR scanner, then you'd like to be able to compare the scanned
Is
ballot
this-
from a voter
Is
against
this,
the,
this is for later on if we work on software to
Yeah,
do ballot
right.
information? Okay, I see.
yeah, not for ORR.
Okay.
So the headings in these things I can get without the sample, I believe.
Okay, well, why don't you, could you just maybe send me an email of what you need, and then I can just ask the director if he still has that? And then, so you want either an original PDF of the blank ballots, or?
Or a high-res scan of a blank ballot.
Okay. For each precinct or ballot type?
Well, or at least I don't know which, if we have the same ballot type that was in our sample scan.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know
Well,
if
that
it's a mix or not.
So for
Okay.
whatever ballot types would be in
Okay.
the sample scan.
All right. And maybe even we can wait until those are publicly posted, and then you could just look at that to tell me what types you want or something.
Okay.
Um,
I think I collected all these, all the sample ballots.
okay.
I hope I did, but if not, then I'll try to do it before it goes away.
All right. Okay. So, question now for posting the scanned images. This is more of a technical question, but what do you think? We have our website, but does anyone have any like suggestions on how these should be posted? Like, should I just put them in a GitHub repository and just?
We have a data repository for this, right?
Yeah, but do you know if GitHub has any limits?
Oh, on
They're big.
data? That's a good question. I don't know if they do.
It looks like,
It's probably a good idea to use, well, I guess we already have a bunch of PDFs in another repository.
looks like this is a, sorry.
So you're asking whether we should use GitHub or just stick them in a directory on our file system?
Yeah,
The
Well-
question is,
or maybe host them on a different third-party service, like if,
are we in the free category with GitHub?
technically no, I think. Or
Free,
it's like $5 or less.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like the file, it's gonna be something like 5 or 6 files that are each like 20 megs.
okay,
Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's not a
probably
problem.
fine, yeah.
Well, is there 5 or 6 ballots, or is that?
No, it's, well, each file, like 20 megabytes for like 30 sides. So for,
Oh, okay. I don't know what resolution they were scanned at.
let me see here.
I mean, the Bugzilla files for some projects are that
Right.
big.
Yeah, there are projects that have like multiple megabytes of just source code.
Yeah, this is, well, I mean, we'll find out soon enough. I'll just put these, since we could just use our existing binary repository.
Which repo were you gonna put it in?
I'm gonna put it into the site files, it's called.
Okay, I forgot which repos
It's-
we have.
I know we have
it's-
OR, we have
Well, this is for the,
converters, and then,
well, this is gonna be for the,
For the website, one of the website repos, right?
yeah, I was just gonna put them on the website repo.
oh, okay, not our sample data.
Yeah, we could switch it over later if it makes sense, but,
May as well just put it on the
CAC website, GitHub. Oh, so it's, yeah, site one.
yeah, but we could switch it to the sample data repo later, once you have that structured.
Well, if we have software that uses it or something, then we may as well put it with that.
Oh, should we just use that for now then? Because we've already,
Well, we kind of created one to have a collection of all data that we collected, right? So we could include some scanned samples.
okay, well, I guess maybe what this hinges on is, do we want this to be something that, like the public, it's more easy for the public to find? Because like, is this, Because I think it might, if it's on the sample data repo, it's a little bit harder for the public to know about these samples.
Yeah, so I'd say we need a section in our main repo that points to the data. It says, we are collecting this data repo and here's a summary of what's in it and here's a link to this
Okay.
stuff. That would be the best way. And then we just grow the data repository with sample stuff, and that's distinct from the other.
Okay, that sounds good. Then what I'll do is I'll add these to the sample data repo, and then we'll find a way to reference that from
Yeah,
the
either on
website.
the main homepage. I guess it's not part of our recommendations document, but there's a main homepage that links to the recommendations, and then you could link to our
Yeah.
data repository.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Okay, okay, so is there anything else that we wanted to discuss regarding, like the 4 repositories we have set up? Just kind of.
So, yeah, I was thinking, if I'm collecting data for the whole election, should I also snapshot the DFM data that's from the county data repos? I mean, there's a separate data repo that the county elections department has, but it's uncertain, if it's of archive material or not.
Wait, when you say repo, do you mean like a GitHub repo, or do you mean just?
Oh, sorry, I meant just there's a section of the election department website for data.
Oh.
And they have some data files.
Sure, why not?
So if I copy them and stick them in our data repo, then it's there and anyone can just download the whole package and doesn't have to go searching around.
It might be good to have like just the final one for each of the last several elections.
Well, I was gonna do just the June one.
Okay, yeah, or just that one, just the final, because they also have like 20 of them. Because every day they publish a new report, they also kept all the old ones.
Oh, you mean the preliminary?
Are you talking
Yeah,
about
all the
results?
preliminary
Are you talking about results reports?
Not just those, but also the CVR reports.
No, I'm not talking about results. I'm talking about the election definition data.
Oh, okay. Okay, that doesn't.
Well, I mean, I'll snapshot the results. But I guess I don't need to do all versions of them.
Right. No, I was specifically talking about the CVR data set, which they do the same with as the results.
Yeah, I'll probably just
Whatever.
snapshot one version, maybe
The
two.
latest one, yeah.
I guess I don't know, see a need to snapshot a sequence.
Yeah, no, there's no reason for you to pull in all 25 of them. That's also what I was trying to say. Like, there's no.
Unless you want to have an animation.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. If you
I
want
mean,
to drive.
maybe it's worth doing 2 or something, but I was only planning on doing 1, maybe just the final ones.
Okay.
I might look back into this because there was some funny business with sequence numbers and like the ballots have sequence numbers in these files. And initially, I was like, well, that's how you can tell which ballots are new in this file. You can just look at what the maximum sequence number is in the previous day's file, and then look at the ones that are greater than that. And that, on most days, that matched the number of ballots that were counted on that day. But there were also days where it was like greater, or like it didn't match in the increase in the number of ballots, and so it looked like some votes covered your number. And I never investigated that issue more deeply because I was using it as a hack to, as just like a
Well,
short
it's
way
not
to-
sure what a sequence number means, if that's a scan, a
Yeah,
number on the
it's
on
not
the
clear
scanner.
what those things mean, but like every.
And then if they rescan a batch, then of course it might get
Yeah,
reset.
so maybe that's why. Well, I mean, the thing it's used for in the data file is like the first choice is one row, the second choice is one row, and the third choice is one row. So it's like ballot ID, contest ID, choice first, second, or third, and then candidate ID. So every ballot has 3 rows, or 6 even. Cause
Which file is this again?
This is the CVR data file for RCV races.
So it uses scan ID to link up the
So you need
the
scan ID.
first choice, second choice, third
Yeah,
Is
so
choice.
this
tie those together.
consecutive integers, or
Is what?
are they consecutive integers in sequence?
Yes.
numbers? Okay.
They don't start at 1. They have been consecutive, except that there's one place where I found a weird gap where they seem to have re-indexed some of them. because I was using that as I mean, of course, you have to use it to pull together the first, second, third choice part of one ballot.
They're unique too.
Yeah, they're unique. You could also use it to correlate people's mayoral votes with their D8 supervisor votes, because those were on the flip sides of the same card and they were receiving the same IDs.
Oh, they're identical numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the ballot number started like 1,200 or 12,000 or something, and then there's like 12,001, 12,002, and goes all the way through.
So you're concerned that there might be like, they're not randomizing it, so.
So, well, no, I'm saying my initial thing that I mentioned, I'm now explaining what this field is and why it's there. But the initial thing that I wondered about, that I wanted to dig back into data for, and why I would want multiple versions, is because I was abusing this field to detect which ballots were new in one release versus another. So if I had two releases and I wanted to compare what happened in between those, I could identify which ballots are new, because the IDs are just consecutive, right?
Do you
So I
know
could
for
just
sure
take-
that they're preserved from?
Well, no, like.
That's what he was trying to figure out, is whether the scan IDs are persistent across
So I
an
made the
election.
assumption that they were, and the statistics that I generated for like day-to-day counts based on that mostly looked right, except there was one where it looked like a bunch of ballots were marked new that were actually old, because there were like several thousand more ballots that were supposedly new than were actually counted that day.
Is
So
it
there's
possible that they went back and like re-adjudicated them?
Yeah, maybe they went back and rescanned some or something, but I've never actually dug into
So-
to see what that meant.
So originally I thought maybe your concern was that you could use this to try to associate with a particular voter based on like when they sent their vote by mail ballot in or something. Is that an issue? Or?
You sort of, but only in rough terms, I think. That was not what the fascinating thing that I thought, that I was like sort of raised a half eyebrow and thought like, I didn't realize this would be okay privacy wise, is that people's mayor votes and D8 votes, supervisor votes were correlated.
Can you raise the half eyebrow?
But no, I don't. I mean, I think the volume is too great for that to really be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could, I mean, yeah, you can correlate. Like you can find out what day a given ballot was counted, and you can see from the press releases from the elections department, like you know what they counted, what types of ballots they counted that day. But it's usually thousands.
I guess the bigger concern would be if like the precinct ballots were ordered based on.
Oh yeah, based on
when the
or
voters showed
the
up.
precinct scanners ballots were scanned order.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's an issue. So are the voter rolls ordered or are the precincts ordered? I mean, is there a way to identify order of voter?
The voter rolls are not ordered, so the voter rolls
So,
are
I mean,
often
normally
used-
you sign in and
Yeah.
there's a mark, but there's no timestamp
Exactly.
associated
Yeah.
with signing in.
So the voter rolls are
Just a
alphabetized.
second. I wanted to check. John, is that okay or?
No, it ended again. It said
Oh, really?
You're in a memory full. I don't know.
Oh, it didn't record on the SD card?
I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to be recording on the SD card.
Good thing we have our backup. So.
Yeah, well, we should all.
Yeah, we've audio, right?
Yeah. We need a
That's the
courtroom
back of
sketch
Laura's
room.
head.
Maybe you just need a $30 GoPro clone.
Yeah, with like.
They
We
work.
could attach it to a drone and have like zoom in.
Alright.
Anyway, that was way too much of a rabbit trail there. I just I was just saying like
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that they've published all of them, because then I can whenever it is at that time I can dig in and see what is going on with the sequence numbers, but it's not at that point.
Okay. But interesting. Yeah, I think it's good that you noticed
There's
that.
some fun things in that data when you
Well,
start going with it.
but sort of related to that, there's issue just in an overall design. You know, if we have like scan batches, and you know we have totals from them, and then those are checked in with digital signatures and all that, then you have this history, and you want to be able to preserve that history and also preserve the chain of digital signatures. And so then there's all these other privacy-related issues. So it may, well, we have to either make sure the voter order is not recorded, or we have to randomize the scan
Right.
result file.
Yeah, there's definitely some room for best practices on this issue. Okay, so all right. Well, we could just continue as we've been. All right. So then, and I'll send an email out when those images are posted.
Cool.
Okay, let's take public comment on this item. Now we have no members of the public. So any remaining things before we move on to the next item? Okay, then let's move on to,
Item 8, project ownership and project management. Discussion and possible action regarding project ownership, project management, and terminology related to these topics.
okay, so, let's see. Okay, so, John, were you able to get those materials?
In item 8.
Okay, so I'll just kind of fill you in on what the purpose of this item was. I thought, and I don't know if we're gonna have time, but I thought, based on the last commission meeting's discussion, I thought it could be useful for us to maybe prepare kind of a brief, maybe description of or definition of the responsibilities of the project owner and what it is. Because I think some of the commissioners and the director were under the assumption that a project owner is the same person that is responsible for doing the actual development. Whereas in my understanding, an owner can be, is more responsible for kind of like telling whoever's doing the development what to build. And then there's sort of like a separation of responsibilities. So were you gonna say something?
What's product backlog?
Well, so I asked Tony if he maybe knows some materials that we could look to that would have a definition of a project owner. And I looked on the web and found a couple websites, and then Tony found a couple websites, and I had Secretary Chan print them out.
You're talking about our Tony?
Yes.
Me. Well,
Is there another Tony?
Well, I don't know, Fat Tony.
Yeah. So maybe I thought we could just have a discussion about this, and do people want a few minutes to look over these materials?
so what is our goal here? Is it to convince the head of the elections department that it's okay for him to be the product owner and not worry about the gory details of implementation, or what?
Yeah, I think maybe convince isn't the right word, but I think maybe we want to give people a clear understanding of what does it mean to be the owner of a project. So it's not more than he thinks it is. And
You know, to me, it's not all that different from a general contractor who oversees getting the project done and the budget, schedule and all that, but there are all these people who are responsible for actually doing the work. And when people do their home repairs, sometimes they hire a general contractor to do all of that, which is the proposal here for, hiring a senior person. Or, if they think they know what they're doing, they can say, oh, I'm gonna manage it myself. And now what you said is that Director of Elections doesn't think he can manage it himself. And so if we make him comfortable with the notion that he's the general contractor.
Well, or he's more like the homeowner.
yeah,
Or the
Yeah.
building owner. You have the building owner that ultimately oversees everything. And then you have the general contractor that, manages the plumbers and the glazers and, all
Yeah,
of that.
when we did this, we had a different Irish guy show up at our doorstep every morning. And good morning, I'm Kevin, I'm here to do the electricity. Good morning, I'm Sean, I'm here to do,
Right, so I mean, you have the building owner and then the general contractor is more like the project manager.
So
Yeah.
the reason I was thinking of this is that it may well be that the director feels uncomfortable with this whole Scrum Agile development tech discussion. And by providing an analogy that is not, you know, born of software, that the roles and the activities may be somewhat easier to understand than accept.
I like these metaphors, but can I just, you're a baseball fan, right?
I am.
So what about in baseball? You have the owner of the team, and you have the general manager, or is that another metaphor? Or
It gets complicated there because you have the owner, which may be multiple owners. You have the general manager.
and then you have the coach.
You have a manager. No, then you have the team manager, who has scouts and coaches. So it begins to get a little more murky.
But
Same thing in movies, you have the executive producer and the.
Yeah, but that's
yeah,
the money.
and who's the director?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
one of the things that you guys printed out, so there's some text here that got cut off below the ad with the special August sale. But the bit of text that got cut off there, I just looked up on my phone, is actually a nice way to look at it. It says the project owner is in charge of defining the scope of the project, the what and the why. They are responsible for collecting all the requirements for a product. And the project manager is in charge of getting things done, the how and the who.
I like that.
The project manager is responsible for completing the project within an established time and budget. So it sounds the latter is something that we are pushing the DOE to hire for, right? That they're now going to hire for.
Yeah, and I would even maybe say that even maybe the Department of Technology is kind of serving as the project manager, because they're the ones hiring that.
Right. Oh, they're the ones hiring the project manager. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that
But
completely
I mean, the role of the election department in this would be to make sure that the project is creating stuff that's
That's
useful and meets,
Useful
you know,
for
they're the ones
election.
that, you know, they know what the requirements are and what the needs are,
yeah.
at least in terms of, you know, the end use, the usage part of it.
So there's also, Tony, you, some of the resources that you provided were more about the specific to Scrum, right?
Yeah, because Scrum is the place where this term, the product owner, has replaced product manager. And in some respects, they're, certainly in a startup, they're very similar. In a larger company, they're less so. But it's, you know, somebody is going to be the benevolent dictator. Maybe not so benevolent in some cases, but who's going to say, this is in, this is out. The buck stops here. This is what we're going to do in this version of this software. And that is, yeah. So if I'm the CEO of a company or the general manager of a division, I may have a product manager who's going to say, these are the features that are in this release. Here's the roadmap for my product, release 1, 2, 3. And then I, as general manager, will sign off on that. So if the development team is going to use an agile approach, they may choose Scrum, and then this is where that all fits in. So this is why I thought that using something that's not technology to explain it to the elections person is, you know, using a metaphor is a much easier way to do it. Here's kind of how it works, you know, and imagine.
So I have a proposal, like, what if we maybe delegate, what if our product can be, and this can be drafted after the meeting, but like maybe it could be like a one-page document, maybe just a couple paragraphs, or even like one paragraph. And it just, you know, like it's like text, here's our statement on what a project owner is versus manager. And maybe we can, just like Rowan used the summary that you read out, and then
Sure.
Tony, we could maybe mention one or two of these metaphors.
Yeah.
And then,
What's Scrum?
Hmm?
What's Scrum?
Scrum is an agile method. It has its very specific vocabulary. Basically, what it suggests is that every morning you have a stand-up meeting of everybody on your team, and that you work in a series of so-called sprints. And a sprint has lasts somewhere between a week and a month, depending. And there are a number of features that you're supposed to build or complete during that sprint, so that you're able to release your software early and often, as opposed to, so that tends to work more for consumer-facing software than for business-to-business kinds of things.
And you have a Scrum guide here, I see.
Yeah, I mean, there was Indian of them, there's
think
Ken
you-
Schwaber's book, which is the definitive thing on.
yeah, I've read that book. I've read that book.
Yeah. It's maybe 10 or 12 years old now. It's not very new.
But you're mostly, I think here you're mostly focused on page 3 of that, I mean, it's a 13-page document, but I think you're mostly focused on page 3 where it talks about the product owner, which is like
Yeah,
a
I mean, there's a little
piece of
bit,
vocabulary in that system.
yeah, I mean, I think the product owner is a little bit more of a blend of the
Yeah,
project owner and
the
project
way Scrum
manager.
defines product owner is not quite what I would want for this,
Yeah.
but,
All right, well, Ron, could you reread that
yeah.
a couple sentences?
It
you
was
had?
supposed to have been on one of these pieces of paper, but it was below an ad, so I'll read it again.
So it's,
So if you look at the very first, I think, page that is, or the
is this
the
the
second,
upstream
sorry.
blog one?
Yeah, so if you look at the first page of that, right, it begins with, here's a short version, the project owner looks at the big picture, the project manager looks at the data details of the project, and the bit below that got cut off says, here's a slightly different way to look at it. The project owner is in charge of defining the scope of the project, the what and the why. They are responsible for collecting all the requirements for a product, and the project manager is in charge of getting things done, the how and the who. The project manager is responsible for completing the project within an established time. So the way that I see that is that there is a person that might not be the director of elections himself, but should ideally be someone who is in the Department of Elections. That is the authority on what are we building and why are we building it, and is this particular piece of it useful to me or not, or did you build this in a way that makes it useful in practice?
But we can think of that person as the representative
Yeah.
of the head of the Department of Elections, and as a proxy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would be the
So-
one representing the DOE towards the DOT.
So I think there's a nice paragraph I like on I guess it's the maybe third document that starts with product owner at the top in
Oh, yeah.
white letters. Like the second paragraph there says, the product owner is commonly a lead user of the system or someone from marketing, product manager, or anyone with a solid understanding of users, the marketplace, the competition, and future trends in the domain of the system being developed. So I thought that's a
Yeah, that's a good.
good
Yeah.
snapshot of what, and that says Department of Elections.
But what we want to do is make the head of the Department of Election feel that it describes him.
Right.
Well, or someone that would work for it.
Or in
Or
his,
something they're comfortable
in his,
doing.
under his wing.
That he can identify with that role.
It's something they're comfortable doing.
So I think that paragraph is
Right.
kind of goes along.
He may
those
not know
lines.
what a product manager is. But yes. So I mean, you increase the level of comfort if you use terminology that's familiar, and if you are able to get him to step up and say, yeah, this is what I know how to do, I can do this.
So I'll take another shot at the metaphor, which is not even really a metaphor, because it describes how organizations like 18F and some tech companies work too. You can conceive of this as the Department of Technology building this thing with the Department of Elections being their customer,
Right.
right? And so then maybe not John Arns himself, but someone who works for him goes and like represents the Department of Elections as the customer to whomever at
Yeah, and
Department of Technology
you know,
is at the moment.
if you think about how this works in general, it's the technology people who have to go interview the Department of Elections people and find out what their needs actually are, to capture them, prioritize them, put them in a product roadmap, what have you.
In terms of like a metaphor, what do you think works better, like the building metaphor?
It may be a blend of both. Like if you are the homeowner, then you are the customer of the general contractor, right? And that it is your job to tell the general contractor what you want done to your home. And it's the general contractor's job to like hire and coordinate people to make sure, and subcontractors and whatever to make sure that thing is done. And so in this sort of, you could say like, you know, the Department of Elections is the homeowner, is the customer, is the people that express what it is they want. The Department of Technology is sort of like the general contractor. They, in this instance, in this model, I guess they would issue RFPs to,
Okay.
you know, vendors to get whatever done, and they might decide to just issue one RFP to one vendor to then subcontract that, which I don't recommend, or they might issue multiple RFCs to different vendors. They might, like, you know, they might choose to outsource or not outsource the role of general contractor to various degrees. But from the Department of Elections standpoint, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you're a homeowner, your general contractor outsources most of their general contracting to another firm, you don't really even care.
It does matter in a couple of respects. It matters first on the cost,
Mhm.
right? It matters second on the quality/reliability of the people who are doing the individual work. So there are reputation points, if you like that. So there are things where you're in fact, as the customer, relying on the general contractor to do a good job for you and to get good people who are going to meet the deadlines and the budget and the quality levels.
But I think
Yeah, no.
commercial building is a little more accurate than homeowners, because homeowners usually aren't that involved or don't know as much.
Yeah, so
Whereas commercial building owners are kind of involved in the
right.
process and meet with the contractor and
Yeah.
kind of oversee them, so that's, I think,
Well,
a
in
good
instances
metaphor.
where, especially instances where commercial building owners do large renovations or they construct buildings from scratch, you do see that they engage a developer, and the developer in turn engages a general contractor,
Right.
because the developer's job is to deal with all the permitting and whatever, and then also sort of coordinate the actual building, but they mostly have that done through the general contractor. They have some expertise of their own and some that they outsource.
My wife is pretty good at this kind of thing as a homeowner.
Yeah, well, some are.
She hired some engineer to do an architectural study of our back deck. And living here in the city, our balconies on every floor, they're completely exposed to the northwest, all the way to Japan. And so the wood rots. And so we have to get this all replaced. And so she has an engineer, and the engineer's got, you know, people who do this kind of thing. And so, but it's a matter of scale, of course.
Yeah, and there's various degrees of involvement that you might want to have.
Yeah.
I think I'm also getting used to restrooms.
Okay, let's,
Yeah, I'm
That's
gonna
good.
take my turn. I'll be right back. Go ahead without me.
It sounds like we have some sort of consensus on what we think
Yeah, so-
product needs.
so let me see if I can summarize. So what if we started with the 2 or 3 sentences you said, followed by the general, followed by the paragraph that Carl said from Tony's document. That
The 2 or 3 sentences that I said off the cuff, or that I read from my phone?
from the quote.
Okay, sure. And I
We
can,
can cite that,
yeah,
and then followed by the paragraph, Carl, that you read about the product owner. and then we can follow that by the building metaphor,
Mhm.
which then we can relate to what that parallels for the Department of Elections and DT, right?
Yeah, so I will email you the sentences that I read
Okay.
out, along with the citation.
So, I mean, does that seem like enough?
Well, also, I think, I mean, if, just to say somebody should be product owner, as a resolution, I think you have to define it more precisely, because, you know, people might interpret it in all different ways.
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm just
Oh,
saying
oh.
it's important.
Oh, you wanna
Before you can
start off-
actually make a resolution to, in the
so you think
election
we should have an
commission.
intro sentence saying why this is needed, or?
No, no, I was just commenting
Oh,
on
okay, yeah.
the fact that it's in, you know, before you actually
Right.
assign someone to be product owner, to product manager, it's good to do that in the context of some specific description.
Do you
so.
know, I meant to actually check this, but do you know if the civil grand jury report defined owner in the document? I meant to double check.
You know, I think I
I
my
mean,
papers got mixed
it would
up.
be good to, I guess you guys got talking about it at the commission because the grand jury report said something.
Yeah,
So they did definitely talk about it. I don't
I know,
remember what they said.
Sorry.
I think my binder, I mixed up my paper, so I don't have the grand jury report.
Yeah, I also, I think, I was gonna read it on the plane and then it didn't do it, so it's still
I
part of my
read
job.
it, but I didn't bring it.
So I had to shuffle all my papers, so when I left for my trip. Oh, maybe it's in this one.
all right, well, so I'm looking at the document right now. So I'm searching for the word owner, and I do not see anything resembling a definition.
Okay.
I don't recall them talking about,
Yeah.
I think they suggested that we hire a project manager, that's
It's
about
not
it.
even in the glossary.
I remember them talking about a lack of ownership, but I don't, and they may have cited examples of what it looks like or things that go badly because there is a lack of ownership, and those might be somewhat instructive, but I don't remember them defining anything.
So here, I'll just, like in the executive summary, owner is only mentioned a couple times. It says, third, there is not a definitive project owner with both an institutional responsibility for the project and an eagerness to tackle it. The project needs an unambiguous owner in order to move forward.
But I think they're maybe talking about what we are talking about as project owner in that context.
Yes, so I think, so we're not like, it's good to know we're not gonna be like conflicting with the
Yeah.
report, we're kind of supplementing it. So then, so should, in the statement, should we like cite this webpage? Just kind of like have a block quote for the report?
Sure, I mean, if we're gonna use that,
Yeah, text.
if we're gonna use the text verbatim, we should cite it.
And then what about, there's one, how should I handle how it says we're using product owner to define project or project owner?
I mean, we can point out that so product owner is like a specific bit of terminology in Scrum
Uh-huh.
that I think doesn't mean exactly what it is that we want, but it means it mostly. Like, for example, it talks, the product owner in this case has a much more hands-on and more detailed role than I envision, like the Department of Elections representative having, because they talk about like the project owner prioritizing the product backlog during a sprint planning meeting. So like they, you have a number of tasks or cards or whatever they are in your system, and the product owner is responsible for saying which ones are the most important to do next.
I mean, that's a product manager role.
Right, that's a level of detail that I don't think is what we're looking for.
Wait, what's that level of detail?
So, In this particular document for Scrum, what they talk about the product owner also doing, and this applies kind of a blend of a product owner and product manager, in my opinion, is that they talk about that person like actually going in and like looking at different tasks slash issues slash cars in your issue tracker and prioritizing them, right? And like sorting them by which one is the most important to do next.
Yeah,
And that's the level of detail that I don't envision for this. So we could say like, it's not quite the same thing, but they are similar. And this is what is written about that role, and this bit we believe is largely applicable to what we are talking about.
well, also, there's a spectrum. As with, on a project manager or somebody who's a department head, they can be very hands-on and really dig in there, or they can be much more managerial and not micromanage, to say, you figure out, what the priorities are, bring that to me and I'll bless it. And so what I think we're recommending here is much more of a hands-off
Yeah.
role for that person, but noting that he needs to have somebody who's going to look at the various tasks and prioritize them and create the roadmap and look at the bug reports.
Because that might live in DOT or even in the contractor, right?
Well, so what if we did something like we lead with the project owner versus manager, and then we say a project owner shares many of the characteristics that a product owner has in Scrum, and then we lead into the.
Right.
So we're not saying we're acknowledging it's not identical, but it's.
Yeah, exactly. That's roughly what I was trying to suggest. Yeah,
Yeah.
is saying like not quite the same, but yeah, exactly.
Also, can we also include the first sentence of this document? Because I really like this phrase, key stakeholder.
Key stakeholder, yeah, sure. That sounds great.
Okay.
And that's good, because it lets us, if we want to, talk about the whole voting system project as having a lot of different stakeholders, right? Because it's,
Yeah.
it's the mayor and the elected officials and the Department of Technology and the Department of Elections and the voters themselves, and they all have differing
And us.
interests.
And us.
But you can say that definitely like the Department of Elections is the main / key stakeholder. You can say like that is the person that is, when someone who is working on the project wants to know something, then directly or indirectly they're going to talk to them. And then if the elections commissioner or the mayor or somebody wants something from them, you can just talk to them and go talk to that guy.
Okay.
So also, just be careful if you start throwing in terms like Scrum.
Yeah, I don't
Assume
wanna-
that nobody knows what that is.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I mean,
Well, and I don't want to prescribe that methodology either, but it's
Right.
So yeah, it's useful.
Well, and then it's like all these things, like it's like somebody's sort of management guide or whatever. And then it introduces all these new terms like product backlog, which
Well,
are
we're not
terms
gonna-
that we all know about, but
So I think in this statement, we're only gonna excerpt the one paragraph you mentioned.
Yeah.
The key stakeholder,
Yeah.
but,
no, I'm just saying if you reference it, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is from the Scrum guide, well,
I don't think that's necessary. I think you can say that it's reflective of the agile way of building software. Scrum is an instance of an agile
Yeah.
method. We don't need to dive down to that level.
But I mean,
Well,
it's not even specific to Agile.
But
I mean,
think-
product owner versus product
Right.
manager.
Okay.
But I think we can also talk in a bit more, talk a little bit more specifically about how this applies to the situation, right? Like what I was saying before is the way I sort of view this, and the way that I think you all view it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the Department of Elections hires a person who is like the product owner sort of role, who is like the person who is treated as a key stakeholder about a project and sort of responsible for like deciding what gets built and what is useful to the Department of Elections. And then the Department of Technology is
They
the
get it
people
done.
they talk to, they're the people that get it done, and they they do some, I mean, it's up to them whether they like hire vendors to build things and mostly outsource management to them, or whether they take a more hands-on role. That's sort of up to them, but from the perspective of the Department of Elections person, that doesn't really matter.
So, but this project manager position that the supervisors funded, you know, what's their role in this?
Well, exactly that, they would manage the day-to-day of the project.
That's a project manager, not a product owner.
Yeah.
Right.
So that
Well-
puts someone, so I guess the way that you translate that to city government speak is that puts someone in technology who can like, you know, coordinate vendors and like hurdle cats and
But
manage the project day to day, but it doesn't put someone, then they don't necessarily have someone to talk to in elections about like whether what they're building is actually useful.
yeah, I mean, but also this is still up in the air a little bit. Like the job hasn't even been posted yet, so it could still change.
But the other phrase that I think may be useful in talking about the Department of Election is that somebody in that department is going to be the domain expert.
Yeah.
And that person is going to know all there is to know about how the voting is going to work. And if he or she doesn't know, then, or if there's some choices, that's where that decision gets made. And because you can't expect the people responsible for implementation to know what's expected in the domain. The specifications or the requirements are going to tell them what they have to build.
Right, so so the Department of Technology, the Department of Technology person that we're talking about hiring, I'm assuming it's the Department of Technology thing because of what you said earlier. Like, yeah, they're gonna have cases where they have ridiculously specific questions about how elections work. And they're gonna talk to someone in elections, and whether that is a new hired person for this purpose or an existing person in elections, but like, it sounds like maybe the way to frame this is like the Department of Elections as a whole sort of
Yeah, it's just
institutionally
speak
is
as
the-
an institution.
yeah, just institutionally is the product owner.
Mhm.
And the project manager in technology knows that they have to like, you know, vet important things, that they want the important decisions that they make and talk to,
Okay.
yeah.
And this gets
get
us
domain
into the
expertise.
classic, this gets us into the classic issue of what versus how. And the technology people are responsible for how, and the elections people are responsible for what.
Okay. So logistically, how should we do this? Like, I think we could just make a motion, like enumerate these elements we want to include,
Mhm.
and then just delegate to someone to craft that language. And
I'm willing to be the proofreader
okay.
and the editor, but
Okay,
not to draft it because my week is a mess.
Okay. Well, I could draft it,
Okay.
and so just to repeat what I've heard. So we have the
quote for me that I emailed
the
you.
quote, the paragraph that Carl said, along with the phrases key stakeholder and then domain expert. We can include the building metaphor, and then we kind of restate the metaphor in terms of the Department of Elections institutionally
And
But I
paired
think-
with the Department
I
of
think the
Technology.
what versus how also works in describing how the Department of Elections and the Department of Technology work with one another.
Yeah, so your
That's
your
actually
quote.
in the quote that he talked about from me is the what and why is on one side and how and who is on the other
Good.
side.
Yeah, so it'll be all in there. And then I'm expecting this will just be maybe like a couple paragraphs.
Yeah,
It's
a
not
couple
gonna be
hundred
much.
words.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, and there are certain words not to use, right? Product backlog,
Right.
Scrum.
Yeah, well, and you get to proofread all that, so you get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, it'll try not, yeah, if the word Scrum is mentioned, it'll be said in a way that makes clear you don't have to know what it means, I
Right.
think. So,
Alright, so then I move that Chair Janai draft that and Member Wasserman proofread it, and then they can send it out as, on our behalf.
I second that.
okay. All right, let's open it to public comment. Seeing no members of the public. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Secretary Chan?
Chair Giordanic.
Yes?
Giordanic, yes. Member Hague.
Yes.
Hague, yes. Member Cattell.
Yes.
Cattell, yes. Member Wasserman.
Yes.
Wasserman, yes. 4-0, unanimous. Passes.
Okay, so anything else on this before we move on? Okay, next item.
Item 9, committee recommendations. Discussion and possible action regarding committee recommendations on the subject of requirements, open source, software development processes, software architecture and design, hardware, intellectual property, and testing.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that we'll add to the existing committee recommendations the text that we create for this message.
Yeah, it'd be good to work it in somewhere. That can be,
Do you want to do that now or later?
Later.
Okay.
or aspirationally for the next meeting or something.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna write and edit
Yeah.
these couple of paragraphs, then they'll just,
You might as well integrate them. Yeah, I'm saying we can just aspire now to have that as a patch for the next meeting.
yeah.
We can talk about where it fits in and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything to discuss in this. It's 8 o'clock right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open it up for public comment, seeing no members of the public. Does anyone else want to say anything on this item? Or we could just move on. Okay, next item.
Item 10, topics for future discussion. Discussion and possible action regarding topics for future discussion.
All right, so was there anything anyone wants to say here?
I'll briefly raise that when we went and toured the Department of Elections while they were counting votes in June, it was mentioned that we might want to attend some of the pre-election activities this coming November election, especially the ones relating to like the voting machines and the functionality testing or whatever it's called.
Right.
I couldn't find on the department calendar when that takes place. It might be that they haven't scheduled it yet. But I just wanted to plant that seed, and you know, this is going to happen like October somewhere or whatever. But I just wanted to plant that seed that we keep an eye on the calendar and see if there's any pre-election activities that we want to attend.
Okay, I could send an email when that comes out, or Don, you can.
Mhm.
It comes out with the normal observation schedule.
Oh yeah, that's right. That
So-
comes out at some point.
It should
Has the
be-
commission, has the director already submitted an election plan to the commission for November, or is that
No,
next?
it should be September.
Okay.
So, the only other thing that I'm thinking about is this job spec for this person. Is it, you know, in process or complete, or is it complete and not posted?
That I don't know. I wish I had more visibility into that, but I don't know. I think it's been in some form of draft. It might be finalized. I don't know.
I mean, in some
It hasn't
ideal
been
world,
posted.
in some ideal world, it would be nice to offer a review of the draft to make sure that it's in line with the organizational structure that we are envisioning for the project.
Okay, how about this? How about this at the next meeting, the commission meeting?
Oh, that's where I'm gonna be, huh?
Yeah, why don't you could say that.
Chris doesn't have to say anything.
Volunteer myself.
Then Chris doesn't have to say anything.
No, and then we could see if we can make the request at the meeting and see what happens. And if we're lucky, we'll be discussing it at the next meeting.
If we're not so lucky,
Did we schedule the next meeting? I mean, not that I can attend it, but.
That
I think it was
Second
tentatively
Thursday.
September 13, right, the second Tuesday?
Oh, okay, yeah.
For your meeting, yes.
say Thursday.
Second Thursday, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's take public comment on this item. Seeing no members of the public. Okay, anything else? Then, okay, then I'll adjourn the meeting. The time is 8:06 PM.